The biggest endeavor in my life has been beauty. From an early age, I saw beauty everywhere. I watched films repeatedly, I practiced every art medium, I read storybooks without stopping, and I went to 1,000 field trips, everything just to feel the emotions I knew only beauty could give to me. Because of this obsession, and probably because I wasn't allowed to watch movies all the time, I learned to see beauty everywhere and at any time. The world became a sea of possibilities quickly. Growing up, I also noticed that I was experiencing very peculiar ways of beauty. I never saw them as an issue or different from the previous experience of beauty that I already had. But things started to shake up when I decided to share them with others. Some people didn't take it well. Actually, some of them thought that my experience of beauty were not about beauty at all, but quite the opposite. These people made me feel guilty, they demonized me, and even they made me believe that there was something wrong within me that I couldn't change. From that point onwards, it was imperative for me not only to experience beauty, but to understand it better. A lot of questions pop in my mind. For example, is there truly one right way to experience beauty? Why everyone is so eager to negate someone else's experience just because it's not the same as theirs? From that point onwards, I was craving for understanding the mind. This anxiety sent me into a journey that culminated in the idea that beauty is a coin. Let me say you in that journey. The first phase of that journey was the realization that beauty is a central experience of every human being. Who after waking up takes a look in the mirror and asks to himself, how am I looking today? A lot of people do. Who after leaving home takes a look to the sky or feels the weather and says, today's an awful day, or today's a beautiful day? Almost everyone, right? So these types of judgment we first do in the day are called judgments of beauty. And they keep popping along the day. For example, what a beautiful outfit Monica chose today, right? Or the new song Justin Bieber released, Hideous. Those are judgments of beauty. And they are so central to our experience in our daily life. Even though we don't articulate them verbally, it's evident that they are there. And they've been there since quite a long time ago, let me tell you. This was the second phase of my journey, the history of beauty. When I was researching the history of humanity, it was impossible for me not to acknowledge that a lot of great thinkers have tried to wrap their head around the experience of beauty too. They have desperately wanted to understand it better. There have been a lot of approaches, but the most important of them is the infamous question, what is beauty? For example, Plato thought that beauty was the perfect idea of unity, and that we could only experience it in small bits throughout our lives. Aristotle thought that something beautiful needed to present a very specific order in its parts. His views were very mathematical. He liked certainty and symmetry. This was almost 2,000 years ago, guys, and this was just the very beginning. From that point onwards, things got crazy. Philosopher Friedrich Schiller thought that beauty related to the good. Another German philosopher, Hegel, thought that beauty was the expression of your freedom and of your spirit. Another German philosopher, Nietzsche, thought that beauty related to the sensual attraction. Poet John Keats thought that beauty related to the good. So as you can see, there hasn't really been a consensus about the nature of beauty ever. And sadly, all the ideas that this thinker posed related almost exclusively to their experience of art. The equation art equals beauty sadly led them to post ideas that were reduced and very personal. I, as an artist, have also struggled with that bias, thinking that art is only meant to show beauty, or that we can only find beauty in art. However, I stumbled upon a great thinker. This great thinker believed and thought that beauty could be found in many other places and had very different forms. This thinker was Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant was a thinker out of the box, mainly because he was a faithful practitioner of a new way of understanding the world, science. He, instead of asking the question, what is beauty? He asked to himself, where is beauty? And how can we obtain beauty? As I said, he was a scientist in a way. But more specifically, he was passionate about the Newtonian way of understanding science. Isaac Newton made a great impact in Kant's work. Like Newton, Kant believed that the answers for understanding better were not hidden in the objects themselves, but in the relationship between the objects. For Kant, beauty was a product of a relationship between two objects. The first one is whatever is experienced as beautiful. This is not necessarily, Kant thought, something physical. It could be a sunset or the song of your favorite band. The second object is the human mind. This was a revolutionary idea. For Kant, beauty was no longer a quality of the objects, but was in the eye of the beholder. For him, the experience of beauty could change from one person to another and still be ruled by universal laws that apply to everyone. Sadly, Kant couldn't prove these ideas or give substantious evidence. Still, his concerns will be later treated in a new exciting field of science. This is the third phase of my journey and is currently my concentration, neuroaesthetics. Neuroaesthetics studies the brain when it reacts to beauty. Scientists in this field are not trying to find what is beauty or to find a single neuronal underpinning on what beauty is. Instead, they're just studying the process in the brains that generate the experience of beauty. And they're having a lot of alternatives that could give us answers about this. For example, Professor Semiseki in Harvard conducted studies that suggested that the experience of beauty can have a single brain-based characteristic. And this is the changing strength in activity in the medial prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that is mainly in charge of decision-making, is right here. A lot of other studies have shown disturbances in other parts of the brain, parts related to reward, emotion, and perception. It's interesting that FMRI tests conducted to people when they're experiencing beauty never show the same exact disturbance. The brains seem to behave differently. Never the same two parts in two different brains show the same exact disturbance. I like how Professor Bevan Conway oversees this situation. For him, we may have a beauty instinct that is produced by a complex machinery similar to the machinery that produces your ability to learn languages. For him, like with Kant, beauty changes from one person to another, its manifestations, but it's ruled by universal laws that apply to everyone. Bingo! This is what I was looking for. For me, this suggests that beauty is an exercise that we all need to practice because we're all humans and we all have brains, that we all do it differently, and that we all tend to be successful at doing it in a very personal way. But more than that, and this is the interesting part, this is the part that excites me, it can mean that beauty is something we can learn, just as we learn languages. At this point, I was asking myself, when have I learned beauty? When have I seen something different that moments before I thought was ugly and later I thought it was beautiful? And it quickly came to me. This is my friend Jose Rodriguez. He's a music junkie just like me. At the end of every year, we share with each other the lists of the albums we thought were the best released during that year. 2010 was a very special year because he decided this album was the best one. This is Beach House's Teen Dream. I hated it. I thought it was awful, outdated, terribly flat, baroque, just the worst. But then we met to chat about the album. I was really eager to understand why he thought this thing was beautiful. He talked about emotions, he talked about love, he talked about how the artist, the band, had tackled this topic and how they have managed to convey the message. It was something that never crossed my mind. For the next month, every new listen of the album unveiled that beauty that once captured Jose. Now I can say that Teen Dream is one of my favorite albums, not only because of the content, I think it's beautiful, but because it challenged my perception. So what allowed me to challenge my perception? Acceptance. I was willing to hear Jose's experience. I was empathic. I was trying to listen and to even set myself in his experience. At this point, it became clear to me. Beauty is a coin because it has two faces. In one face, we find the courage to fight for our experience of beauty, to defend it. But in the other face, we find humility. The humility for accept others' experience, learn from them, hear them. When we ask the question, how can we obtain beauty? We realize we are the creators of beauty to some extent, and that we can learn new ways, that we can create new forms of beauty. We are constantly bombarded by opinions disguised as facts of how we should create or experience beauty. Don't let them control your life. You can hear them, you can learn from them, but at the end, it's your call. That's why beauty is everyone's job. More importantly, your job. It's your call. As you have the courage to celebrate your experience of beauty, you should also have the humility to celebrate someone else's and probably learn from them, just like I did with Jose. So neuroaesthetics has still a lot to offer to us. It's like the baby of modern science. But it can lead us to a path that we can find in the end the answers to uncover the mechanisms in our brain, just like Newton did with the mechanisms of nature. If Newton did, why we shouldn't? So we can be sure about two things today. First, that Kant wasn't wrong. Beauty is a product of how you want to relate with the environment that surrounds you. Second, that beauty is a human capacity. We all can do it, and it's mutable. It changes from one person to another. Guys, understanding the brain won't take you to heaven, but it can definitely open doors for experiencing a better life, a more adventurous life, a more beautiful life. Thank you.